Before we descend into the shadows of the most restricted city on Earth, if you are fascinated by the operations that governments deny and the history that never makes the morning news, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Turn on the notification bell. The world of intelligence is built on secrets, and we are here to uncover them one file at a time. The heat in Mecca is not simply a weather condition, it is a physical weight. It presses down on the millions of souls gathering in the valley, a relentless force that blurs the line between the earth and the sun. It was August, the height of the Hajj pilgrimage, and the city was swelling with a sea of humanity. Over 2 million people, dressed in identical white seamless cloths, moved in a hypnotic oceanic rhythm. To the faithful, this was the pinnacle of spiritual submission. To the 3 men monitoring the live feeds in a windowless room in Tel Aviv, it was a logistical nightmare. The target was Imad al-Hussein. To the world, he was a ghost. To Western intelligence agencies, he was a myth. But to the Institute, the colloquial name for Israel's intelligence service, he was the architect of chaos. Al-Hussein was the logistics chief for the organization's Northern Command, a man who moved missiles like chess pieces and turned borders into sieves. He had not been photographed since 1988. He did not use cell phones. He did not sleep in the same bed 2 nights in a row. He was a shadow, but even shadows seek redemption. Intelligence had arrived via a circuitous route, originating from a source in Damascus, filtered through a listening post in Cyprus, and finally landing on the desk of the director. Al-Hussein was dying, not from a drone strike or a car bomb, but from a failing heart. He had become religious in his final years, seeking to cleanse a lifetime of warfare before he faced his creator. He was going to perform the Hajj. For the planners in the Chasseret unit, the Special Operations Division, this presented an impossible paradox. The target was finally in the open, yet he was in the one place on Earth where the Institute could not go. Mecca is a sanctuary. Non-Muslims are strictly forbidden from entering the city limits. The checkpoints are rigorous. The penalty for intrusion is severe detention and deportation, but the diplomatic fallout would be catastrophic. If an Israeli operation were exposed near the Kaaba, the holiest site in Islam, it would not just be a failed mission, it would be a geopolitical earthquake that would set the entire Middle East on fire. "It is impossible," the operations chief had said during the initial briefing. "We cannot send our people in there. The risk of exposure is 100%. But the director had looked at the file, at the list of operations al-Hussein had orchestrated, the lives lost, the threat his continued existence posed to national security. "There is no such thing as impossible," he replied. "There are only varying degrees of difficulty. If he is there, we will be there. But we will not leave a trace. We will not leave a mark. To the world and to the faithful surrounding him, this must look like the will of God." And so Operation White Shroud began. It would not rely on guns, explosives, or dramatic chases. It would rely on the oldest tools of the trade, deception, chemistry, and the ability of a human being to become invisible while standing in a crowd of millions. To understand the necessity of the mission, one had to understand Imad al-Hussein. He was not a man of speeches. He left the rhetoric to the politicians and the clerics. Al-Hussein was a man of mathematics and engineering. Born in the sprawling suburbs of South Beirut, he had studied civil engineering in Europe before returning home to find his country consumed by civil war. He applied his mind not to building bridges for traffic, but to building infrastructure for war. He revolutionized the concept of the hidden arsenal. Under his guidance, bunkers were dug beneath civilian infrastructure with such precision that they were undetectable by thermal imaging. He designed the encrypted communication networks that allowed orders to flow from Tehran to the border villages without a single electronic signal being intercepted. He was the man who ensured that when a shipment of advanced guidance systems left a warehouse in Syria, it vanished only to reappear mounted on launchers in the valleys of southern Lebanon. For 20 years, the Institute had hunted him. They had come close in 1996 in Athens, but he had switched cars at the last second. They had tracked him to a safe house in the Bekaa Valley in 2004, but the airstrike hit an empty building. Al-Hussein had left 20 minutes earlier, sensing something in the air. He was paranoid, meticulous, and brilliant. But the stress of a life lived in the crosshairs takes a toll. The medical intelligence reports were definitive. Al-Hussein had advanced congestive heart failure. His movements had slowed. He was relying on heavy medication. And with the proximity of death came the urge for spiritual closure. The Hajj is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, a duty for every Muslim who is physically and financially able. For a man like Al-Hussein, who had spent his life dealing in death, the pilgrimage was his final attempt at peace. He traveled under the name Mustafa al-Masri, using an authentic Egyptian passport obtained through the vast black market of documents that he himself had helped establish. He shaved his signature beard, lost 30 pounds due to his illness, and walked with a cane. When he boarded the flight from Cairo to Jeddah, he looked like any other elderly pilgrim, frail, devout, and harmless. He believed he was safe. He believed that the sanctity of the holy city provided a shield that even his most determined enemies would not dare to pierce. He believed that the rules of war stopped at the boundaries of the haram. It was the only mistake he would ever make. But in this line of work, one mistake is all that is required. The selection of the team was the most critical phase of the operation. The Institute has a diverse roster, recruiting from all corners of the world. But for this, the criteria were non-negotiable. They needed operatives who could pass not just a visual inspection, but a spiritual interrogation. They needed Musta'arvim, agents who specialize in assimilating into Arab populations, but of a specific caliber. They chose 2 men, codenames Avner and Yusuf. Avner was born in a neighboring Arab country to a Jewish family that had emigrated when he was a child. He spoke Arabic with a native tongue, specifically the dialect of the Levant. He knew the culture, the mannerisms, the rhythm of the street. But more importantly, he had spent 3 years in deep cover in North Africa, posing as a textile merchant. He knew how to live a lie without breaking a sweat. Yusuf was younger, a specialist in close-quarter surveillance and technical operations. He had darker skin, born to parents from Yemen. He could recite the Quran with a melody that would bring tears to the eyes of the devout. He had studied Islamic theology as part of his training, not just to blend in, but to understand the psychological landscape of the target. For 3 months, they did not train with weapons. They did not practice driving or hand-to-hand combat. They went to a secluded facility in the Negev desert where they lived as devout Muslims. They prayed 5 times a day. They studied the rites of the Hajj in excruciating detail. The tawaf, the sa'i, the standing at Arafat, the stoning of the pillars. They learned how to wear the ihram, the 2 sheets of unstitched white cloth, ensuring the right shoulder was exposed at the correct times. They learned the specific supplications. They were drilled by defectors and religious scholars who worked with the intelligence community. They were tested on the minutiae. Which foot do you enter the mosque with? What do you say when you see the Kaaba for the first time? How do you perform ablutions if water is scarce? One slip, one moment of hesitation at a checkpoint, one incorrect phrase, and they would be exposed. In Saudi Arabia during the Hajj, security is omnipotent. Cameras are everywhere. Religious police roam the crowds. A suspicion of being a non-Muslim intruder could lead to immediate arrest, interrogation, and a diplomatic crisis that would make the headlines for a decade. They were given identities as Jordanian brothers, businessmen from Oman operating a logistics company. Their paperwork was flawless, real passports issued by assets within the Jordanian bureaucracy who had no idea who they were actually helping. The night before they left, the mission commander sat them down. "There is no extraction team," he told them quietly. "If you are made, you are on your own. We cannot send a helicopter. We cannot call the embassy. You are ghosts. If you are caught, you do not exist. Your objective is a clean resolution. No collateral damage, no spectacle. He goes to sleep and he doesn't wake up. Do you understand?" "We understand," Avner said. "Then go with God," the commander said, the irony hanging heavy in the air. Arrival in Jeddah is an assault on the senses. The King Abdulaziz International Airport during Hajj season is perhaps the busiest transit point on the planet. Flights arrive every few minutes from Jakarta, Istanbul, Lagos, Karachi, London. Thousands of pilgrims pour out of the terminals, all dressed in white, all chanting the talbiyah, "Labbaik Allahumma labbaik." Here I am, O Allah, here I am. Avner and Yusuf moved through the crowd with practiced ease. They carried minimal luggage. Their demeanor was humble, their eyes lowered, their lips moving in silent prayer. This was the first test. The Saudi immigration officers were exhausted but vigilant. They scanned faces, checked biometric data, looked for the telltale signs of nervousness. Avner handed over his passport. The officer glanced at him, then at the screen. He asked a question about his business in Amman. Avner answered smoothly, complaining briefly about the heat and the cost of shipping, the universal grievances of a logistics man. The officer stamped the passport and waved him through. They took a designated bus to Mecca. The journey through the desert was slow, the highway clogged with buses. As they approached the city limits, huge arches spanned the road, marking the boundary of the Haram. Muslims only. This was the psychological threshold. Crossing it felt like stepping onto the surface of another planet, one where the laws of physics were replaced by the laws of theology. They checked into a hotel in the Azizia district, a few miles from the Grand Mosque. It was a mid-range hotel, crowded with pilgrims. The target, Al Hussein, was staying in a much more upscale establishment, the Fairmont Makkah Clock Royal Tower, a skyscraper that loomed over the Kaaba like a futuristic monolith. The intelligence provided by the surveillance team back home, who were tracking Al Hussein's digital footprint via a compromised travel agency database, indicated he was in room 1402. But they couldn't just knock on the door. The hotel was a fortress, security in the lobby was tight, and Al Hussein would have his own people nearby, even if they were low profile. "We need eyes on him," Avner whispered to Yusuf as they sat in their room, the air conditioning rattling. "We need to know his routine. Does he use the tunnels? Does he pray inside the mataf or on the upper decks? Does he eat in the room?" Yusuf opened his small travel bag. Inside, hidden within the lining of a prayer rug, were several microtransmitters and a high-powered, compact optical device disguised as a digital counter used for tracking prayers. "I'll go to the mosque for the Fajr prayer," Yusuf said. "I'll scout the clock tower entrance." "Be careful," Avner warned. "The crowd is the weapon, but it is also the danger. Don't get crushed, and don't make eye contact with the guards." The Grand Mosque, Al-Masjid al-Haram, is a structure of overwhelming magnitude. It can hold millions of worshippers. In the center stands the Kaaba, the black cube draped in silk and gold, the focal point of prayer for billions. Around it, the mataf, the white marble floor, is a swirling vortex of humanity circling counterclockwise, day and night, never stopping. Yusuf entered through the King Abdulaziz gate. The roar of the crowd was like the sound of a massive waterfall. He let the current of people carry him. He wasn't just looking for spiritual connection. He was hunting. He moved toward the area facing the clock tower. He knew Al Hussein would likely use the VIP exits to minimize the physical strain on his heart. For 2 days, they watched. They took shifts. They didn't sleep much. They lived on dates, yogurt, and adrenaline. The sheer number of people made surveillance incredibly difficult. A face appears for a second and then vanishes behind a wall of white cloth. On the 3rd day, they spotted him. Al Hussein emerged from the hotel lobby, flanked by 2 younger men, likely nephews or low-level aides acting as caretakers. He looked frail. He walked slowly, leaning heavily on a cane, stopping every few meters to catch his breath. He was wearing the ihram, his shoulder exposed, looking indistinguishable from the thousands of other elderly men seeking blessings. "Visual confirmed," Yusuf murmured into the micro-recorder disguised as a lapel pin. "Target is moving toward the King Fahd gate. Pace is slow. He is struggling." Avner was positioned 50 meters back near a water distribution point. He watched the target. He felt a strange dissonance. This old man shuffling toward the sanctuary was the same man who had ordered the bombing of the embassy in Buenos Aires. The same man who had turned the border villages into fortresses. It was a reminder that monsters rarely look like monsters. They looked like grandfathers. They tracked him into the mosque. Al Hussein did not go down to the mataf to circle the Kaaba immediately. The crush was too dense. Instead, he went to the 2nd level, where the crowd was slightly thinner and people used electric wheelchairs. He sat near a pillar, viewing the Kaaba, his lips moving in prayer. Avner moved closer, sitting 2 rows behind him, opening a small Quran. He wasn't reading, he was listening. He needed to hear the voice, to confirm the identity beyond a shadow of a doubt. Facial recognition software back at HQ had given an 85% match based on the blurry long-range photos Youssef had snapped. But 85% wasn't enough to authorize a termination. Al-Hussein turned to one of his aides. "The heat is mercy," he said, his voice raspy but distinct. "It burns away the sins." Avner froze. He knew that voice. He had listened to hours of intercepted phone calls from the 90s. The cadence, the rasp. It was him. Target confirmed, Avner thought. The architect is in the building. But confirmation was the easy part. The hard part was the methodology. How do you neutralize a man in the middle of a crowd of worshippers without causing a scene, without an autopsy raising questions, and without violating the sanctity of the mosque in a way that would curse the operation? They couldn't touch him inside the mosque. It was too risky, too many cameras, too many witnesses. If he collapsed there, the medical teams would be on him in seconds. They needed a transition point, a place where the crowd was dense but moving, where a stumble would look natural, where a touch would go unnoticed. Back in the hotel room, Avner and Youssef reviewed the plan. The Institute had provided them with a tool straight out of the laboratories of the future. It wasn't a gun. It wasn't a knife. It was a transdermal delivery system. It looked like a generic adhesive bandage, the kind used for blisters, which every pilgrim carried because of the long walks. But beneath the innocent beige surface was a reservoir of a synthetic compound. It was a modified opioid, highly concentrated. Upon contact with the skin, if applied with pressure, microneedles would deliver the payload into the bloodstream. The effect would not be instant. That was crucial. If he dropped dead the moment they touched him, the people around him would grab the person who touched him. The compound was designed to take 45 minutes to metabolize. It would depress the respiratory system and slow the heart rate. For a man with advanced congestive heart failure, it would simply tip him over the edge. He would feel tired. He would go to his room to rest, and his heart would simply stop. The medical examiner would see a man with a documented history of heart disease who died of cardiac arrest during the strenuous exertion of the Hajj. It happens every year to hundreds of pilgrims. It is considered a good death, a blessing to die in the holy city. No autopsy would be demanded. No questions would be asked. "We have to do it tomorrow," Avner said, studying the map of the route between the hotel and the Jamarat, the pillars where the ritual stoning of the devil takes place. During the movement to Mina, the crowds will be chaotic. It's the only time his guards will be separated from him by the crush. The ritual of the stoning of the devil is notoriously dangerous. The crowds are immense, channeling into multi-level bridges. It is a place of high emotion and physical crushing. "He won't walk to Mina," Youssef countered. "He's too sick. He'll take the train or a VIP bus." "He has to do the Tawaf al-Ifada," Avner said. "He has to return to the Kaaba. He will likely use the underground tunnels to get from the clock tower to the Haram. The tunnels are air-conditioned, but they are crowded. That's our kill box." The tunnels. Long, echoing corridors tiled in white, packed with people moving in a singular direction. It was a claustrophobic nightmare for security, but a paradise for a brush pass. "You take the lead," Avner told Youssef. "You create the diversion, a stumble, a dropped water bottle, anything to make his guards look down or step aside. I will be on his left. I need 2 seconds. And if the guards react? If the guards react, you apologize. You are a clumsy pilgrim. You beg for forgiveness. You recite prayers. You do not fight back. You let them shove you. We are not soldiers here. We are helpless worshippers." The tension in the room was palpable. They were discussing murder while the sound of the Quran being recited echoed from the television. The cognitive dissonance was deafening. They were using the rituals of peace as camouflage for an act of war. But Avner pushed the thought away. He thought of the missiles Al-Hussein had built. He thought of the bus bombings in Tel Aviv. This wasn't murder, he told himself. This was sanitation. The next morning, the city woke up to a scorching sun. The temperature hit 42 degrees Celsius. The air shimmered. Al-Hussein left his hotel at 09 hours, heading toward the tunnels. He was moving slowly. Avner and Yusuf slipped into the stream of white-robed bodies. They adjusted their ihrams. They whispered, "Labbaik." The hunt was on. The tunnel connecting the Azizia district to the Grand Mosque is a marvel of modern engineering. Yet during the Hajj, it transforms into something primal. It is a concrete artery pumping a river of humanity. The air conditioning units roar overhead, fighting a losing battle against the body heat of thousands of pilgrims compressing into the confined space. The sound is a continuous, reverberating drone of prayers, footsteps, and the hum of industrial fans. Avner and Yusuf entered the stream. They were no longer intelligence officers. They were drops of water in an ocean. They adjusted their pace to match the rhythm of the crowd. To move too fast was to draw attention. To move too slow was to risk being trampled. They spotted the target, Imad al-Hussein, 50 meters ahead. He was shielded by his two aides, who used their bodies to create a small pocket of space around the frail old man. This was the variable the planners in Tel Aviv feared most, the phalanx. If the aides remained tight to his shoulders, there would be no angle for the brush pass. Avner signaled Yusuf with a subtle adjustment of his ihram cloth. Wait. Patience. They stalked him for 10 minutes. The tunnel sloped downward. The density of the crowd increased as they approached the exit near the haram. This was the choke point. The pressure of bodies became immense. Pilgrims pressed against one another, shoulder to shoulder, chest to back. Personal space ceased to exist. Now, Avner thought. Yusuf accelerated slightly, using a technique known in the trade as ghosting, using the wake of larger pilgrims to slip through gaps that didn't seem to exist. He moved to the right of the target's group. He began to cough, a dry, hacking sound that fit perfectly with the Hajj cough that plagues the pilgrims due to the dust and close quarters. Yusuf stumbled. It wasn't dramatic. It was the weary stumble of an exhausted man losing his footing. He collided heavily with the aide on the right. "Forgive me, brother. Forgive me!" Yusuf cried out in Arabic, grabbing the aide's arm to steady himself, his weight pulling the bodyguard away from al-Hussein for a fraction of a second. The aide, startled and annoyed, turned to shove the clumsy pilgrim away. "Watch your step. Have respect." That was the opening. The protective bubble had ruptured. Avner was already moving. He was on al-Hussein's left. The target was momentarily exposed, looking toward the commotion caused by Yusuf. Avner closed the distance. He held the adhesive device palmed in his right hand, the protective backing already removed, the microneedles exposed. He didn't shove. He didn't strike. He simply allowed the momentum of the crowd to push him into the old man. As they collided, Avner's hand went to al-Hussein's exposed shoulder, as if to steady him. It was a gesture of kindness. "Grandfather, careful." His palm pressed firmly against the skin near the neck, right over the trapezius muscle. He applied the calculated pressure required to trigger the transdermal system. He held it there for 1 second, 1 eternity. Al-Hussein winced slightly, not from pain, but from the sudden contact. He looked up, locking eyes with Avner. For a terrifying microsecond, the two enemies stared at each other. The hunter and the prey, separated by decades of war, united in a tunnel of prayer. Avner smiled, a weary, apologetic smile. "Peace be upon you, Hajj," he whispered. "And upon you," Al-Hussein muttered, distracted, turning back to his aide who was still berating Yusuf. Avner pulled his hand away. The adhesive patch remained on his own palm. Only the chemical agent had been transferred, invisible and potent, sinking into the pores, finding the capillaries, beginning its journey to the heart. Avner melted back into the crowd. Yusuf, having offered a final apology, slipped away to the right. They did not look at each other. They did not look back. They flowed with the river, carried toward the light of the Grand Mosque, leaving a dead man walking behind them. The terrifying reality of biological agents is the silence. A gunshot echoes, an explosion shatters. But chemistry works in the dark. Avner and Yusuf exited the tunnel and entered the blinding white expanse of the Grand Mosque. The adrenaline in their systems was toxic. Their hearts hammered against their ribs, threatening to burst. They wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at them to flee, to get to the airport, to vanish. but they couldn't. Ritual discipline, the mission commander had drilled into them. If you run, you are guilty. If you pray, you are invisible. They had to complete the Umrah. They had to perform the Tawaf. They had to circle the Kaaba 7 times, joining the very people they were deceiving. It was a psychological torture unique to deep cover work. They raised their hands in supplication, chanting the prayers, while their minds counted the minutes. 10 minutes elapsed. The chemical would be in the bloodstream. 20 minutes. Al-Hussein would be feeling a heaviness in his limbs. He would attribute it to the walk, the heat, the age. 30 minutes. The respiratory depression would begin. His breathing would become shallow. The oxygen saturation in his blood would drop. Avner watched the digital clock on one of the minarets. He imagined Al-Hussein returning to the hotel. The target would be exhausted. He would tell his aides he needed to rest before the evening prayers. He would lie down on the plush bed of the Fairmont, looking out at the Kaaba through the window. He would feel a tightening in his chest. Back at the hotel in Azizia, Avner and Yusuf finally regrouped. They did not speak. They turned on the television to the live feed of the Grand Mosque, but their ears were tuned to the encrypted frequency of their comms gear. Silence. The waiting is the hardest part of the assassination. The did we miss phase. Did the dosage fail? Did he wipe it off? Is he immune? An hour passed, then 2. The sun began to set, painting the sky over Mecca in bruised purples and oranges. Suddenly, the encrypted channel crackled. It wasn't a voice. It was a series of data bursts. Yusuf decoded it on a specialized pad disguised as an e-reader. Chatter on the Hezbollah secure channels. Yusuf whispered, his voice trembling slightly. Panic in the logistics node. They are asking for a doctor in the Royal Tower. Avner closed his eyes. The mechanism was working. The heart was failing. The architect was crumbling. Room 1402 of the Fairmont Makkah clock. Royal Tower was a place of panic, but quiet panic. The aides of Imad al-Hussein were disciplined men, trained in counter-surveillance and urban warfare, but they were helpless against physiology. Al-Hussein lay on the bed, his chest heaving. He was conscious but fading. He complained of a crushing weight, a darkness encroaching on his vision. The heat, he gasped. It was too much. The aides called the hotel medical services. In Mecca during Hajj, emergency teams are efficient. A paramedic arrived within minutes. He saw an elderly man with a history of heart failure, clutching his chest, his skin pale and clammy. The diagnosis was immediate and routine. Acute myocardial infarction. Heart attack. There was no suspicion of foul play. Why would there be? The man was old. He was sick. He had just walked through a tunnel in 40-degree heat. To the medical team, this was a standard Hajj mortality event. They administered oxygen and nitroglycerin, but the chemical agent Avner had delivered blocked the receptors. The heart muscle, already weak, simply gave up. The rhythm descended into fibrillation. Al-Hussein looked at the ceiling. Perhaps he thought of his family in Beirut. Perhaps he thought of the missiles hidden in the valleys. Or perhaps in the end, he only thought of the black cube he had traveled so far to see. At 1842, Imad al-Hussein, the Phantom of the North, took his final breath. The aides wept. They were warriors, but they were also believers. To die in Mecca, during the Hajj, is considered the ultimate blessing. It guarantees entry to paradise. They did not see a murder. They saw a mercy. They saw a man called home by God. This was the genius of the operation. Mossad had not just killed the man, they had co-opted the narrative. They had turned an assassination into a beatification. There would be no investigation, no autopsy. Saudi law encourages immediate burial, especially in the Holy City. By the time the sun fully set, the paperwork was being processed. Cause of death, natural causes, cardiac arrest. Avner and Yusuf received the confirmation code 4 hours later. The package has been delivered. The recipient is sleeping. They did not celebrate. There is no joy in this work, only relief. They sat in the dim light of their hotel room, the weight of what they had done settling over them. They had desecrated a sanctuary to save lives. It was a moral calculus that would haunt them, but it was a bill they had agreed to pay. The mission was not over. In intelligence, the insertion is difficult, the execution is dangerous, but the extraction is where you get caught. They had to leave. But they couldn't leave immediately. Fleeing right after the death would trigger algorithms in the Saudi security system. They had to act like pilgrims who had completed their duty. They spent one more day in Mecca. They performed the final circumambulation, the Tawaf al-Wada. Walking around the Kaaba for the last time, Avner looked at the spot where the target had stood. The crowd had already filled the void. The world moves on instantly. A man who had shaped the geopolitics of the Middle East was gone, and the sea of white didn't ripple. They took the bus back to Jeddah. The atmosphere at the airport was chaotic. Millions were trying to leave. The security was even tighter than on arrival. The Saudis were on high alert for stampedes, disease, and terrorists. Avner and Youssef stood in the immigration line. They were tired. Real tiredness, not acting. The stress had burned them out. An officer at the passport control booth stared at Youssef's passport for a long time. He swiped it again. He picked up a phone. Avner's hand drifted inches toward his pocket, where he had nothing. No weapon, no phone. He felt the cold grip of fear. Had they been seen? Had a camera in the tunnel caught the brush pass? The officer put the phone down and looked at Youssef. "The system is slow today," he grunted, stamping the passport. "Go." They walked through the gate. They boarded the Royal Jordanian flight to Amman. As the plane taxied, Avner looked out the window at the shimmering heat haze of the tarmac. He felt a profound dissociation. He was leaving a crime scene that was also a holy site. When the wheels lifted off the ground, Youssef let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for a week. "It's done," he whispered. "It's never done," Avner replied. "He has a successor. He always has a successor." The news broke quietly. A brief statement on a Hezbollah-affiliated news site. The resistance mourns the passing of the Mujahid Imad al-Hussein, who ascended to his creator while performing the sacred duty of Hajj. There were no threats of retaliation, no accusations against the Zionist entity. Why would there be? God had taken him. To blame Israel would be to insult the divine timing of his death in the holy precincts. In the headquarters of the Institute in Tel Aviv, the mood was somber. There were no high fives. The director smoked a cigar in his office, looking at the file marked White Shroud. He took a red pen and drew a single line through the photograph of al-Hussein. But in the intelligence community, secrets have a way of whispering. Within weeks, chatter began to emerge from the intercepts. The Iranians were suspicious. They knew al-Hussein's heart was weak, but the timing was too convenient. They launched a quiet internal investigation. They interrogated the aides. Did anyone touch him? Did he eat anything strange? The aides remembered the clumsy pilgrim in the tunnel, the one who stumbled. But thousands of people stumble in the tunnels. It was nothing. A ghost story. The ambiguity was the true weapon. If Hezbollah admitted he was assassinated, they admitted that Israeli intelligence could reach them anywhere, even in Mecca. It would shatter their morale. It would prove they were vulnerable in the eyes of God and man. So they chose the lie. They chose to believe it was natural. They swallowed the poison of doubt rather than face the humiliation of the truth. This is the ultimate victory in the shadow war, when your enemy cleans up the crime scene for you. Years have passed since Operation White Shroud. The dynamics of the Middle East have shifted. New wars, new alliances, new technologies. But the file remains classified, buried in the deepest sub-basement of the archives. Avner and Youssef retired from field operations. They live quiet lives. Avner runs a security consultancy in Tel Aviv. Youssef teaches Arabic literature at a university. They never speak of Mecca. They never meet. But sometimes when the news shows footage of the Hajj, of the White Sea circling the Black Stone, Avner feels a phantom sensation on his right palm, the heat of the adhesive, the texture of the skin, the weight of a life ending under his hand. He wonders if it was justice. He wonders if the lives saved by stopping al-Hussein's missiles balance the scale against the desecration of the sanctuary. Intelligence offers no absolution, only results. The operation proved that there are no safe havens. It proved that the long arm of the state can reach into the most forbidden zones on Earth. It changed the rules of the game. Enemies of the state learned that they could not hide behind borders or religion or crowds. But it also proved that the cost of such power is silence. To execute the perfect operation, you must be willing to be forgotten. You must be willing to let history record a lie. Imad al-Hussein lies in a grave in Beirut, honored as a pilgrim who died a holy death. Avner sits in a cafe in Tel Aviv, watching the sunset, a ghost in his own life. The war goes on, the shadows lengthen, and somewhere, right now, another file is being opened, another name is being circled, and another impossible mission is being planned. If this story of espionage, deception, and the gray morality of the shadow world captivated you, do not forget to subscribe. We are building a library of the world's hidden history. Share this video with someone who thinks they know how the world works. Drop a comment below. Was Operation White Shroud a necessary act of defense, or a line that should never have been crossed? I'll see you in the next file. Stay curious, stay vigilant.